So folks, sit back, relax. Today we'll promise we won't be causing you death by PowerPoint. We plan to have very informal discussion, mainly around these three topics around transformation, innovation, and kind of practical strategies on achieving them. So as Dhanya mentioned, we had connected with her a few times in the last few days, and I found her very insightful. Her thoughts are very insightful. She's very energetic, unlike Rex, and she's fun to talk to. And we both have kind of secretly decided to pull Rex's legs during this call, so feel free to join in as well. Thank you, Dhanya, for joining us. I know it's almost like a last day for the quarter, and you have a lot of work for you. But thanks for joining us. So with that, Dhanya, can we get started with our I won't call it rapid fire, but
absolutely fire away. Are you going to start off with rapid fire or end with it, Farooq?
We'll try to end with that. We'll start simple. We'll keep it very normal and basic, to begin. Yeah. So in times of COVID, because one cannot start a conversation without COVID. Let me ask you this question. So in your view, how do you think COVID has impacted the global economy for the last year or so?
Yeah, thanks, Farooq, and hello everyone once again. It's indeed a good juxtaposition of events, that today being the last day of the quarter closure, literally, because we do our billing out of Singapore, 30th is literally the last day. And if I, as the business head of a $500 million business, can afford to come and have fun and make friends, it means that while COVID has had all its negative effects on the global economy, there have been certain things that have sort of propelled forward during the COVID times, and I'll talk to you a little about it. And a little, while many of our family, friends have been affected by the pandemic, we've heard about the migrant worker crisis, the daily wage workers have gone through a lot of trouble, etc. But there has been a little bit of a silver lining on the dark cloud, which is the technology sector in particular. But even before coming to the technology sector, just a few data points on what has happened to the global economy. Not that many of you are not aware, but I just thought I'll summarize to get the session started, because we are deep in the midst of the COVID crisis. And as we thought things were improving, we are hearing about multiple lockdowns and or possibility of lockdowns, etc. So coming to the global economy, we've had the worst economic downturn since World War II. That's the truth of the matter. It's been almost a 3.5% year-on-year world GDP degrowth. And more in India, Indian economy has had a -8% year-on-year GDP decline. Now, while this has happened, the government has really pumped in a lot of money. The fiscal stimulus has increased almost 11x times. But what has happened is the traditional technology spending, as they call it, right? There has been a 3.5% minus year-on-year decline. But on the digital front, right, there has been a sustained growth momentum there. And almost 90% of the enterprises have started to accept that there is no running away from technology and from digital. And they've all started making investments into digital economy. And almost 90%, or I would think almost 75 to 80% of our global workforce has sort of seamlessly transitioned into the remote working model. So that's what's been happening on the global economy, and a lot of behavioral changes that we are observing as we witnessed in the last 1 year. The CIOs, earlier the CIOs used to be more like business supporters, but they have sort of shifted from running technology-enabled business to their technology itself becoming the core business pattern. So you've seen how technology platforms like the food platforms, the mobility platforms, etc. have evolved. So the CIOs have started playing a very core role in enabling business transformations. A lot of shift has happened from CapEx to OpEx. So there has been a variabilization of costs. Enterprises are willing to invest in digital, but they're moving out their one chunk CapEx investments into OpEx to see how can they sort of, spread out their expenses over a period of time and check on the results, and then, take dipsticks and accordingly decide how they want to move forward. Speed has become a very important factor. The earlier, when we used to, and we as Microsoft have witnessed this, earlier when we used to make, presentations on what digital transformation will do, customers were talking about almost a 3 to 5x 5-year digital transformation journey. Today, they're saying in 1 year, what is it that you can quickly get running up and over for me? And that's what I want to do. And let me get digital as at the earliest. And partners like you, like Citius, they are becoming stable partners, are becoming almost like strategic players in organizations where they are looking at customers are looking at partners who have a strong balance sheet, efficiency of remote operations, etc., to provide a differentiated value proposition. So these are some of the few, both from an economy perspective as well as from a behavioral perspective that we have witnessed in the last 1 year during the, I would say the post-COVID time frame, Farooq.
That's great, especially for IT companies. That it's a great thing to have. As I said, it's a silver lining for us in some ways.
Indeed.
So, any specific impact that you feel that you have seen in the IT industry mainly, and the kind of challenges and the kind of opportunities that you kind of foresee here?
Absolutely. I handle the India market, and when I took over like 2 years back, it used to be almost a $150 billion revenue, and that's the size of the Indian IT industry, folks, right? It used to be a $150 billion. As it stands now, the latest NASSCOM reports call it out as a $194 billion economy, the Indian IT industry revenues. So that has been a tremendous growth. And the beauty is that, the domestic Indian industry, the IT industry, has also grown by 4%. When I say domestic, the internal India consumption has also grown by around 4%, aggregating almost $45 billion into the global revenues that I just talked about. Also, there has been an expanding global presence. The industry has expanded in the core markets of US. US anyway was a big economy, and UK was, but also continental Europe and Asia Pac. There has been a significant growth in technology investments, and thereby players like you, us, etc., have had significant growth in these markets. Also, new job creation. Last year, the Indian IT industry was, I think it was around 4.1 million, employment opportunities were given out by the Indian IT industry, but now it's grown to around 4.47 million. So around 1.2 of that, around 1.2 million employees have been skilled purely on digital technologies, not just traditional technologies, but digital technologies. So these are all things, and I talked about the digital revenue acceleration. Digital revenue, if you see as a percentage of the overall industry revenue, it's almost 30%, and it's growing at almost 5x the overall service revenue growth. So, good times. We are hoping that what we bring into the economy trickles down, helps the rest of the not so fortunate parts of, our brethren, and we are able to contribute in some shape and form by what we do.
That's a great point, Dhanya. In the same context, Dhanya, you mentioned that in India you've seen growth in the digital realm, about 4% of it that you mentioned.
Yeah.
Any specific areas that you saw that you've seen in India especially?
In India, on the 4% growth, government has started investing in technology, because manufacturing to some extent, banking to a good extent. But I think the biggest contributor to that 4% would definitely be government. And it's very interesting to see the way government is making investments into the cloud. They used to literally hug their servers and desktops and not let them go. But now they're just saying, hey, this is the initiative, this is what we are going to run, and it will run straight on the cloud. Nothing like transitioning. It just leapfrogged into the cloud, I would say, the way the government has behaved.
Oh, fantastic. That's music to a lot of cloud engineers at our end, Okay.
Yeah, indeed. And lots of people who are handling the government sector, they have built a lot of requirements and a lot of demand at the customer end, but it's never taken off, because every year it used to be, okay, let's do it next year. But now people are just jumping on. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. So Dhanya, so what are the innovations in this post-COVID world, that you have seen and you find it really significant, and any trends that you can actually, recommend or suggest that you might see in the future?
Sure. I think you are actually, as Citius, you are actually at the helm of one of the most radical, I would think, innovations that's happening. Obviously, there is a whole lot of new technologies that have gained momentum in the post-COVID world, but definitely I would like to call out healthcare, education, remote working, and retail. These are the most critical, areas where I've seen maximum innovations coming out. I think all of us most of us have children. We've seen the way education and how digital transformation has completely transformed education. E-learning was earlier a very radical idea. It always used to be, hey, you have to go to school, sit with your tuition master, and that's how you get to, master the subject. Now, e-learning has just become a norm. It is expected that the online education market is going to quadruple in the next 2 years. So any of you looking or wanting to mentor your friends, family members, online education is a definite area for them to go to. The thing about online education, it has its plus and its minus. While it democratizes learning to a good extent, right? If I am close to a tuition master and he's able to coach me better vis-a-vis somebody in a village who's just relying on a school teacher to teach him, there is obviously a strata of difference there. But in an online world, it is sort of baselined equally because it's the same person delivering the content. But the fact is also that the technology sometimes may be unaffordable for the lower strata of society, right? So while you say it democratizes, in a way it also differentiates. So that's something that all of us should be really aware of and see in what shape and form we can help. So that's one thing on the education front. I think the other one that's really bludgeoned is takeaway restaurants. Fine dining, nobody could even think of fine dining completely moving into takeaways. But now I think people are all willing to recreate the same experiences at home, through their takeaways. Then these home takeaway meal delivery platform that apparently has grown to a $182 billion industry. And then you must have heard about this concept of ghost kitchens, right? In India, we call it Kitchens of India, where they just set up the platform for the kitchen and multiple vendors just come, set up their shop, and then it's catered home from there. That is also gaining a lot of momentum and that's a lot of innovation we can expect in that space. Then coming to corporates, mergers and acquisitions. The big fellows are getting bigger because they have their stacks of money and they are able to invest in R&D, and they are also getting better government support and other institutional support. They are growing bigger, whereas the smaller ones are not able to sustain. They might be folks with very niche experience, niche skills, but they're not able to sustain. And it so happens that the bigger ones are ending up eating up the smaller ones who are not able to sustain amidst the pandemic, which is sad, but that's the truth of the matter. And then, Microsoft has been one of the greatest beneficiaries here, the online working world. So Teams utilization has just bludgeoned manifold, likewise Zoom, and it's made remote working a totally plausible. Microsoft India has opened up from 1st March in Bangalore and Gurgaon, and I've just gone 2 days. And I'm just, I really don't feel the need to go now. First of all, it's not full house and not everybody's there. But I feel, I'm just wasting time driving to work and coming back when I can start my meetings like an hour earlier, and save that time. So this is going to be, something that continues as a trend, definitely. Then coming to other use cases that we are seeing, using our AI, ML, IoT, etc., that Microsoft is also directly involved in, and we are seeing innovation. And this is more related to COVID and your healthcare space. Drones that are providing and checking on the indoor disinfection levels. Earlier, it used to be GPS tracking for drones, and it didn't allow drones to fly indoors. In confined spaces, they would crash. However, now with deep space and AI to power these drones, one of our partners called Digital Aeroless, it's testing the disinfection power of the UVC lights within indoors to ensure that the environment is protected. The other thing, similar stuff, temperature tracking, checking the health and basic vital parameters of patients who are either coming into office or who are coming into the hospital or who are later being remotely managed out of home. The other thing is, solving the last mile issues. You must have heard and you must have seen this also, right? When Wuhan went completely into lockdown, this online retailer called JD.com, he used autonomous robo vehicles to deliver food, medicine, even masks. There were almost 100 million masks that were delivered across a 3-day period to folks. So these are few things. Then many of you would have seen the virtual pods coming up, where you just move the virtual pod to one part of your house and it really protects you from background noises, and you have your own office wherever you go. So a lot of augmented reality and virtual reality collaboration that's helping to ensure that a lot of innovation comes up and business happens, but happens in a different way across some of the industries that I just mentioned. So,
so you're right about three things actually. There's a digital divide, that's still there because someone in a rural space can get the same perhaps education, but there's a digital divide. The infrastructure may not be there in some form or the other, but at least it has democratized, and we're glad about that happening.
indeed.
The
Yeah,
work from home.
I'm just thinking, on a funny part of it. Think of, a head office, just taking the same example to a head office as against education environment, right? The persons who are close to the boss, like cronies, they manage to get the best of the boss to, influence him, etc. Whereas the guy who's working remotely has only that many, canned interactions or, specific interactions on Teams or whatever. So he actually, earlier, the guys who were closer, they used to have their chai breaks or their beer breaks, and they used to put their hands around and make friends with the boss. Today, it's all democratized. The guy who's working in a remote geography, as well as the guy working in Bangalore where the boss lives, doesn't get to meet him. So in a way, I think it's a positive thing that's happened probably in the corporate environment.
And I think especially people in Bangalore will be very happy not to travel, not to step out
Indeed.
on the roads
Yes.
in the traffic.
Indeed.
By the way, Rex actually lighted up when you mentioned takeaways. So
is that so?
Yeah, Rex actually kind of his face lit up when you mentioned takeaways. Okay, so speaking about innovation, so Microsoft always had strong leaders, Bill Gates, Steve Ballmer, and now you have Satya Nadella. We heard a lot about the transformation story at Microsoft. Can you share us something around that, like a guiding framework that you have used for this transformation?
Yeah, I think the company definitely, obviously, we changed with the times. We were moving into the cloud world where we did not have a position of strength, or we were more the Office and the Windows folks, and then we were moving into these uncharted territories. So the organization itself had to go through a huge transformation. But Satya, being at the helm of affairs, really, accelerated this transformation to a great extent. I think the first and foremost, and many of you who might have read his book or read some excerpts from his book, Hit Refresh, would really relate to this, right? This is about empathy. He calls out empathy as the core element and source to success. He says, if you can take learnings from your family, and he actually talks about his own life. Where he was this go-getter, and his wife was she was an architect, and he was working in Microsoft, and they were looking forward to their first child. And unfortunately, it so happened that the child had some brain asphyxiation when it was getting delivered, so developed cerebral palsy. So they had a special child, and he says his world just changed. For many days and months, he couldn't accept the fact that something like this happened to him, when all they were planning were rosy dreams about how it would be so nice to have a lovely child come into the house. His wife adapted. She was running around from place to place, trying to find special schools or special treatments and stuff like that. But he just went into some sort of a shell. And suddenly, after a certain time, it just dawned on him that the more he is going to do this, the more he's not going to bring his true self and give his best to whatever he did. So, and that's from where the concept of empathy, and he says, that was my moment of hit refresh, my moment where I realized that as long as you are able to be empathetic and understand what the other one is going through, as well as help them guide to where you want to jointly get to, you will always achieve well and be happy and be successful. So everything at Microsoft today, is along those lines. Like we say, do not have a learn it all mindset. Have a learn it all. Don't go in with a know it all mindset. Like today when I came in, although it is 30th of March, I'm really looking forward. For me, it's about knowing 3 or 4 new people. It's about probably some questions that will come from the audience that will help me learn a little more. That's the growth mindset that each one of us at Microsoft is encouraged to, sort of develop. The other one is, and we are all alpha people, right? We all, to survive here, we just need to be self-starters, huge initiative takers, and go-getters, and all of that stuff. But the way the organization culture is sort of managed is through what we call as the 3 circles of impact. One is the individual contribution, where you could be a rock star and you've done everything and you're really shining, but that's not how every employee at Microsoft is assessed. There are 2 other circles, which is what have you done to contribute to the success of others, and what have you learned from the success of others, and you have imbibed and sort of created a best practice out of it. So I'm just saying, even if I was an individual contributor and I really outperform my numbers, until and unless I have done well in the other 2 circles, which is contributing to others and learning from others, I will not even get a Met expectation rating in my this year. So that is how strongly the organization inculcates the spirit of helping one another, allyship and teamwork. And that's really taken the company culture and transformed it in the last, I would think, in the last 7 to 8 years, definitely.
So that must have bringing you a lot of cross ideas and innovations, and perhaps even thoughts which people would not have connected dots across. I guess that's what has started happening.
Absolutely, Farooq. The diversity element, right? Where many a time we come with either our own experience bias. I know it well, I will teach you how to do it, and you better go and do it that way, right? So that is automatically, that culture is curbed, where you're giving the other person an opportunity to express what is his differential point of view and give it a fair chance to be considered and attempted before you, decide which way. Likewise, the another bias, which is the experience bias, jump to conclusions. Yes, for this problem, this is a solution. Jump, let's execute. No. So that's the other thing, to avoid both an experience bias and an experience bias. And that's something that's constantly coached to us as managers. And in fact, in this pandemic year, it was more relevant than ever before, where the manager in Microsoft is, measured on 3 things: model, coach, care. Model, I think, is self-explanatory. I don't have to talk about it. But coach and care, right? And this started even before pandemic, but it's turned out extremely helpful at these times, because we are all working remotely. We don't know what mental health issue the other one is going through. You don't see the person. So the coach is a very specific type of coaching. It is not about, say, if Farooq had a problem, he came to me and I knew the solution. I just give it to him and Farooq goes and executes. No, it's about exploring the problem and talking about it in different aspects more and more with Farooq, so that Farooq himself comes out with a solution to the problem, than accepting Danya's solution and going out. So this means you're building non-dependent teams. You're building teams that are capable of navigating by themselves, and you become redundant as a manager, in the sense, with or without you, that team will still be successful. And that's the concept of model, coach, care that is being heavily inculcated as part of the transformation culture at Microsoft.
That's a great model. So you're basically, in short, you're trying to teach someone to fish rather than give them the fish, basically.
Absolutely. It's not easy, Farooq, because it takes a lot of time.
Exactly. I was going to come to
because that. Yeah, and we are all running against time in this world, right? We just want to get about our day and do a million things and add more things to our to-do list. But to take the time when a team member comes to you and understand his problem and still not give a solution, but keep asking questions in different ways, that he will ultimately find the solution himself and then give some suggestions or whatever, or whatever help he asks of you to help him navigate. So it's been a really critical game changer in the way we've built our teams in the last 2 to 3 years with this particular tenet of management or leadership, as you might call it.
And Dhanya, I'm assuming here that you have teams which are geographically spread across, and different teams might be coming with different ideas as well. How does this work with them as well?
Absolutely, and I think it's, at least in my case, the team is all in India.
Okay.
Right. So I am based out of Bangalore. The rest of my team is spread in Gurgaon and Bombay and Pune and all of that. So, but ultimately, as Indians, we have some sort of sentiments and emotions which we can all, which we will be able to, which might be easier to understand, and even the communication might be easier. But imagine a person working out of Hyderabad engineering, the development center in Hyderabad, as a manager, and he's got remote teams spread all across the world, and they are putting something together. If he is not able to take the time to understand a different communication style or a different emotion or a completely different point of view, then you've actually lost the team member who's spread in some part in, maybe Romania or Ethiopia or wherever, right? So it's all the more important in those sort of situations to have this sort of culture inculcated by the manager.
Absolutely. In fact, so I had my next question around the management philosophy at Microsoft. You kind of have already answered a few points on it, but even then, I still kind of continue asking the same. How do you continue to kind of get the best out of your teams in a very sustained manner? Because as we know, we all are kind of running fast, trying to achieve a lot during the day. How do you actually manage that?
Yeah, so three things we always keep in our head, Farooq. For the manager especially, create clarity for the team. Don't give them a million things and you be muddled along with them, getting them muddled. Give them clarity as to what is it that they need to achieve and give them the freedom to go ahead and achieve it. Okay, absolutely. So create clarity is number one. Number two, generate energy. If it might be the most difficult task, but if you do not approach it with the right energy, then you've lost that battle even before you've started, right? So generating energy and being a part of maybe even a front leader, pulling up your socks and working along with the team and generating that energy for them to go after that and driving for results. So these are three things that we always keep in mind when and if you cannot simplify a problem and create clarity for your team, then it means that you yourself have not understood what you're going on, right? Exactly. So I always tell my team, guys, idiot proof it for me. If today, if you're not there on the Teams call explaining this PPT, I should just be able to look at it and understand what is a summary, what is the objective that we want to achieve. So idiot proof it and simplify stuff. And that's something very, very critical that we follow. And then overall, I think, I'm sure all of you have heard of the much repeated Microsoft mission statement, which is to empower every person and every organization in the universe, right? So that is the overall mission statement that Microsoft has. And what we say is how you get towards this purpose is with a vision. You need to have a North Star vision. You need to have the culture we just talked about. Then obviously you need to have the unique capability or maybe your own USP, which is your chapa, the way you will go about achieving that particular objective, and work to enhance your capabilities to be able to achieve that purpose. So that's the overall framework. It looks like a lot of English, but the way we manage to make it real is by ensuring that when we have our weekly one-on-ones with our team members, we simplify it for them, we break it up, and every week or fortnight, there will be a particular to-do that they will achieve, and we measure them against it and help them to move forward from there. So that's how we just simplify and break it up to ensure that we drive for the common purpose, which is the North Star.
This is fantastic stuff. Dania, you should write a book, and I'll be the first one to buy it. Once you do that.
I don't have the patience for it, Farooq. That's my problem.
So the next question which I had in mind, I've always thought that Microsoft, whenever we think about Microsoft engineers, the first thing that comes to mind is they're geeks. And I do know that you yourself have been a state topper throughout your time as well. So how do Microsoft engineers tend to consistently keep themselves on top of innovation and kind of keep reinventing themselves? Is there something that in the Microsoft waters that actually really helps transform them at an org level, something that we can learn?
Well, I think, I think at least for me personally, the biggest thing about being at Microsoft is my ability to get constantly challenged, because there's so much capability and talent around you that, if you don't continuously look out for yourself and try to improve yourself, you will feel automatically that you're not fit to be a part of the pack. So, most of it, Farooq, is self-motivation. And that self-motivation automatically comes when you look at your peer group by virtue of, their intellect levels. And that's the biggest opportunity to learn at Microsoft. So that is more in the space of self-learning and self-motivation. But, within the framework, there is enough and more that the company also does. There are coaching circles. there are mentorship circles, and then there are also sponsorship circles. Like for instance, if there is a spark of a person, just to give you an example, if Shalil Kani, who's your account manager, he is one of our top performing resources. So for Shalil, we will have a sponsor aligned, not just a mentor, a sponsor aligned to ensure that Shalil is, is successful in his career journey. He is able to get the diverse experiences that will help him enrich and to look at opportunities that work for him. So, that also motivates, employees a lot, because they feel that somebody in the senior management is vested in their success and helping grow along, helping them grow in the journey. Then obviously there are the rest of the stuff, right? There is the mandatory training. There is a whole lot of certifications available where Microsoft pays for it if you're willing to spend your time and your weekends taking those certifications. But I think the biggest one and the differentiator, I would think, is the environment itself and the fact that success breeds success. Absolutely. So you work with a super smart peer group, you will automatically bring out your very best, or you will not be a part of that group.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks for that, Danya. So I kind of move on to something different now. So we all talk a lot about the shift to the digital economy. We kind of spoke about that earlier as well in some ways. Can you talk about Microsoft's story itself, in the space of digital transformation? So what have you seen the impact of it being on your customers as well?
Sure. I think one thing that this entire economic climate and uncertainty has taught us, that no business is immune to a crisis and no organization is 100% resilient, right? So at least to some extent, in this entire crisis, what we've seen, businesses that have fortified themselves with some digital capabilities, they've been able to pivot and get over and respond more rapidly and meet their customer needs also. So that's one thing that we have actually seen happening. And under a head of digital transformation, while it looks like a very cliched and oft used word, just to simplify it, right? What is at the crux, especially in software organizations like Citius and Microsoft, etc.? What is the most important resource? It is the employee. That employee will need to be empowered both technically, culturally, so that he fits so well into the hybrid work model. And I'm sure you've heard about TCS, who is the industry leader in the IT space. They've indicated that by 2025, only 25% of their employees will need to come to office. The rest, they're saying they will be completely comfortable ensuring that they continue to. It's called the 25-25 model. By 2025, only 25% of their employees will need to work. Will need to work out of office. So that's really wonderful that TCS has come in and declared openly, but I'm sure most of us are going there. So in this environment, what is the transformation employees will have to go through? There are two changes. One is the type of work. The second is the workforce, which is the mindset of the employee to work in a remote place, and the workplace itself, which is the location of the office. The office can be either at your home or it can be at office. That's a workplace. Second is type of work. It will be online work. You will not necessarily, scratch to closure. You may not have the benefit of completing a project. You might just be a pod going in and using your skills and delivering certain parts of the project which deserve your sort of skill sets, and the mindset to be able to ensure that despite you working remotely, you're still collaborating as effectively with your team members. So this will mean possibly a good amount of reskilling, especially in the world of data and AI, that employees will need to think about, and because it's a gig economy, right? People are not going to be necessarily full-time employees. They might just become part-time employees going in and delivering in a parachuted pod sort of environment. So that's one thing that one will have to look at, ensuring that employees are onboarded onto this journey of digital transformation. The second part of it is who? It's a customer. Obviously, customers are the people for whom we are doing all of this. And we need to ensure that while we all work remotely, we don't end up disengaging the customer himself. There's so much data signals that the customer is sending us. There is so much that is coming in different forms, especially in this digital world. There are gigabytes and trillion gigabytes of data that's coming our way. So this continuous digital feedback loop, right, where the customer tries something of yours, gives the feedback, maybe feels that there's something could be better, bringing all of that back to the employee so that he changes his product or his service to suit the customer's requirement. While he's doing this, how does he optimize operations? Right? How do you do this in the most effective manner? What insights are you gathering from your systems for you to be able to take the most critical decisions at the right points in time? So that's the digital feedback loop in the context of digital transformation. Employee empowerment, customer engagement, optimizing your operations, and the fourth but not the least is transforming your products and services, and all this working as a continuous digital loop with data coming in through your customers' feedback back to you. So that's what we have seen, and this is applicable across any industry, be it in the banking industry, be it in the manufacturing industry, where we are looking at connected collaboration, connected experiences, be it in the healthcare industry which you are in. I'm sure there's so much happening there by the day, that is new innovation that's coming up with all these insights. So that's a large picture of digital transformation. I'm not getting into industry specific stuff. We already talked about some of the stuff that's happening in the healthcare vertical. So that's what we are, and that's what we are poised on working with our customers to ensure that we onboard them onto this digital transformation journey, so that irrespective of whether life goes back to normal or not, businesses continue to grow.
Sure. So Dani, I had a question around the healthcare vertical, but what I'll do, I'll park it for the time, because I think we are 40 minutes in. I'll rather jump into my other two questions which I had in mind. So Microsoft is changing a bit differently, and it's kind of growing organically with the recent GitHub acquisitions. It's also showing an active interest in buying Discord. What are the new areas that open source communities can actually partner along with Microsoft? What's the Microsoft partnership model that to drive this kind of a win-win approach?
Yeah, sure. Good question, and very relevant in the context of the relationship between CTS and Microsoft. So Microsoft realized long back that software is at the core of everything. So we started taking deliberate measures to provide developers with the right set of tools. And if you see a lot of recent acquisitions that we were made, they were kept, they were made keeping in mind the born in cloud open source platforms, specifically acquisitions such as GitHub, which has been one of our biggest. Yep. So the fact that, in the last 1 year, the times of COVID has actually propelled forward the remote working so much for collaboration. Almost 70 to 80% of code contribution comes from open source. So for us, it was like acquiring an entire set of developers and providing them the right set of tools, which is a very unfamiliar terrain to us. We've never played in the open source. And earlier in the Steve Ballmer's time, it used to be literally heavy competition that we used to work on against the open source, but now it is more of co-opetition, where we are looking at open source and onboarding them and looking at how can we make things better in that environment, to ensure that we engage the open source set of developers. And even in that space, right, that's where Microsoft brings in its strength, which is the framework of security. So while open source is used quite a bit in corporates, it's very important that the sensitivity associated with an IP related to the code that was developed. Somebody should not copy code and use it in a different IP that's getting delivered to another customer, etc. So GitHub has its advanced security framework, which helps to ensure that a pre-check and balance and notification is sent to the developer even before he goes ahead and releases the code into production. So that's some of the stuff that we have learned, and by working along with GitHub post the acquisition. But talking about partnership itself, there's a lot that we are doing in this space. It's not just about going into a startup and telling him that, hey, get this onto the Azure platform and we'll build it together, and it doesn't stop there. The beauty of Microsoft is it is a build with, a go-to-market with, and a sell with motion. When I say build with, obviously it's the incubation of Microsoft technology, help give them the best of expertise, knowledge transfer, etc., to ensure that this product, we have the Microsoft Ventures and Accelerator, where we incubate new startups to be able to develop their technologies. Yet at the same time, after the product is developed, then when we have to go to market, Microsoft works with this partner to ensure that there is a partner manager present in every geography where this customer is interested, say in the US, UK, different Asia Pac territories, etc., to work with the local account team so that we create the right marketing programs to be able to promote that particular product to be taken into that market. Citius, you yourself have a partner manager out of the US with whom we work to help you promote your products. But most important, and that's the USP, it's not just the go-to-market marketing, but something called very unique to Microsoft, which we call as co-sell. It means when a product is developed on a Microsoft platform and certified as a IP co-sell product, right? Then the entire force of the Microsoft seller ecosystem jumps in, and the Microsoft seller ecosystem is incentivized to be able to take these products into their customers. So if you have a super good healthcare product, right, and if Microsoft healthcare vertical absorbs this product as an IP co-sell product, then that vertical and its sellers will take this product into your set of into our set of customers to ensure that you're able to penetrate into that segment also. So very, very unique one. I'm sure other competitors might pick up on this, but this is something that's helped us quickly scale up the partner ecosystem to develop products on our platform.
In fact, we are kind of a bit proud to say that we have a couple of products along with Microsoft on the co-sell space.
Very nice. I'm sure if US is your area of focus, I'm sure the healthcare vertical sellers in that zone must be working with your account managers to ensure that we jointly co-sell your products. We do that a lot in the Indian market for IP co-sell products that are ready for India.
Okay.
Almost 10%, just to give you some base internal mathematics, 10% of that overall deal value that the partner makes, the account manager of Microsoft gets 10% of that as his quota retirement value. So if you clock like a $1 million deal with the customer by virtue of having worked with the Microsoft account team, 10% of that 1 million is directly compensated to the as quota retirement for the Microsoft account manager. That's the way it works.
That's a great incentive for anyone to do more.
Indeed.
Absolutely. Okay, so one last question which I had in mind, and this is more for the audience at large. So given your experience across working different verticals and organizations, what would you advise young IT professionals, on their career growth, and how do they keep pace with this fast moving industry? Any thoughts on that, Dania?
Well, that's what I was telling you. The only opportunity I have to advise somebody might possibly be in a session like this, because I'm sure my own child will not listen to anything I say. So I'm going to take the benefit of that stage and throw on my Gyan hat and give some.
We all are very happy to kind of to capture whatever he hasn't captured. So we're more than happy to hear.
Sure, thank you. I think it's very important to invest time in self-development, and it doesn't stop at any point in time. Even as I speak to you, I have enrolled into Azure certification exam, which I'm going to go in this Sunday and take. And I know that my weekend is going to go, I would rather, after a heavy quarter, just put up my feet and relax and have a spa or something, but I am going to spend time burning the midnight oil preparing for that exam. So always remember that learning is a continuous journey, and at no point in time you should ever feel satisfied with the amount of knowledge that you have. And this knowledge need not only be in the technology space, right? Because you said, what is the advice to geeks, to engineers? It may not be in the technology space. It can be in anything. Look around you. There's so much happening in the world. Acquire a competency and become a subject matter expert on something, or become a generalist on something that is of interest to you. And for that to happen, you will have to listen to diverse points of view, read editorials, listen to podcasts, find people to follow, listen, and find groups with whom, when you associate, your knowledge grows. I'm sure all of us would love to have a group of friends and have our beers and have fun. That's also very important for us to wind down and have a good time. But at the same time, also find groups which can add some value and keep propelling you towards setting higher aspirations and goals for yourself, both in terms of your learning and career will automatically happen, is my belief. Once you give, invest in your learning, once you give all your energy with the right intent, skill is something you can automatically acquire to get to where you want to. Nobody is born with skills.
Absolutely. So that's what I had one of my ex managers tell me, that no, we are not Abhimanyu. We're not born with those skills.
There you go.
Yeah, okay, you always acquire it in life. So that's how it works. Okay, with that, what I'll do, I'll just kind of take a pause. So, Dania, I know we've been having this chat for a long time. I'll give you 1 minute to kind of grab water if you want to, and I'll kind of ask Rex to see if the audience has any questions.
Sure.
Farooq, I've just texted you a few questions. If you can just go through it.
Did you? Let me
just check the phone.
I think this one question which has come out is a bit of that. How do you keep your team connected and collaborated in this virtual world?
It's not easy. It's not easy at all, especially when you have a distributed team. And there is also a subtle difference between how much you talk to your team and how much you keep a distance, right? Because you don't want to be seen as stepping on their toes and being too interfering, and that creates a lot of frustration and doesn't allow them to try what they want to and become successful the way they would like to. So it's a very thin line. And I think a few things that we've managed during the pandemic, we've had fun sessions once in 2 months or so, where we've gotten together, because I have 2 managers and they in turn have their own teams. With my team, I do it more on a fortnightly basis. But when I have to get the entire team together, which is my 2 managers and their teams, then we have some fun knowing one another's sessions, some games, some pulling one another's leg and stuff like that, which helps us to get to know one another a little more. That has helped. Not been easy, Farooq. I would be lying if I say it's been easy. I would have just to take them off on an offsite to a Kabini or a nearby place and have some games of volleyball or cricket and chat up over dinner or drinks. That would be a much better way. But yeah, I think everybody understands the constraints, and the team has been super supportive, and we've stayed engaged to whatever extent we could. Might be a little more difficult for the newer people who've come in, who joined in, because they've not seen the better part of us. And I think with them we have taken a little more effort to talk more frequently and onboard them, etc. Sort of thing.
So Kabini is the forest next close by Bangalore, right?
Kabini is the Nagarholi National Park.
Nagarholi.
Yeah. So you do a lot of morning safaris and evening safaris and all of that. It's good fun. You guys should try it if you're here.
Yeah, absolutely. Rex is making a note of it, and I think from what I know, Rex and the way I've been pulling it, yeah. So Rex might actually take a safari and put me in the middle of the jungle and go off. So that's quite possible.
You must have seen, I don't know if you guys are on Twitter, you must have seen in Kabini this recent Black Panther.
The Black Panther one, yeah.
So he's around with his mate there all the time. We have not been fortunate. Last time we went, I clicked the picture of a black kitten and then I blew it up, and we went in 2 safaris. So the other guys thought we saw it. I posted it on the Teams group and we had a lot of fun.
That's a good way of doing that. So I just have one more question, which kind of came to my mind, while you were speaking, sir. That you mentioned earlier that you are a kind of fitness freak, and knowing the role that you do at Microsoft, I believe you'll be juggling multiple things. So how do you kind of manage the work-life balance and give time to your hobbies as well? Generally.
Yeah. I think I'm pretty compartmentalized that way. My mornings are very clearly for myself. Thankfully, my husband wakes up. He works for the BPO, so he doesn't wake up till 10:30, so I don't even have to bother. So morning from 6 to, I think my coffee time, my paper time, and my gym or my yoga or my workout time. And I don't even look at my mails until it's 8:30 or so, because I feel that the early morning you open up and you look at it, and then Even that 1 hour that you set aside for yourself, you're just thinking and you're responding. So I ensure that all I look out for is a good podcast to switch on, or some good music, or some chanting to do. And so the day starts off very well. And then it's a mad trip. Once you get into work, then there's nothing. I can't even share any best practices, because you're trying to do multiple things, getting in and out of calls, customer negotiations, people challenges, all of that. But evening, when I was at work, when I was traveling, I used to make sure that by 7:38 I close out. And when I come home, then I do not touch work. But now with working from home, it's faded a bit. I mean, it's sort of mixed into one thing or the other. But still in the evening, I try to go by around 7:30, I try to shut off and go for a stroll, and only attend to business if I need to. Weekends are sacred. I just do not touch work on weekends until the situation deserves. That way, I do not give work to the teams. I do not initiate. If they have something, and until it is something very critical, customer related, I request if it can be moved to a Monday. So those 2 shutdown days I feel are very important. I have my own network, my friends, and they help me a lot to come back on Monday with rejuvenation. That's how it works, Taru.
Fantastic. All right. I'll just quickly ask Rex if there are any other questions which are out there.
Yeah, there are a couple of questions which are coming over here. So I'm not sure if it's relevant, but I can read it out, Dhanya, for you.
Sure. Bring it on. I should actually ask the questions. I can't see
the
audio.
Exactly.
That's a sad thing about live.
So what do you think are some of the innovations expected in healthcare, using AL and ML? Is there anything, so you could elaborate for that?
Yeah. Sure, there's a lot. I'm sure all of you have heard about HoloLens, right? It's operated with hand gestures, voice commands, and we're doing a lot of innovation in that space. Recently, if some of you have followed, we enabled surgeons to view the 3-dimensional holographic images and to do a shoulder surgery with doctors present from across, I think, 3 regions. So this is being actually adapted, and the mix of virtual reality and augmented reality with HoloLens is having a lot of application in the healthcare space. And we also have very efficient partners. I don't know if you've heard about this solution called Unit Insight. This allows physicians to quickly look at the many phases of COVID-19 so that they can accordingly decide the amount of patient care and the amount of community transmission that is likely to happen. So this is, developed by a South Korean radiologist, and we found that very effective, where it's leveraged many of our AI algorithms to look at COVID-19 and to set up testing process, staffing, resourcing, vaccination, and all of that stuff. Autism is another area. In UK, we've done a lot of work in this space, different applications developed by a company called Actimage. One is, I'm sure most of you are aware of what autism is. It's they want to get people who are autistic into the workforce, and Microsoft has worked along with this partner Actimage to start helping them with something called Job Now, which are like simulated interviews, because these people have a little bit of a problem with eye contact, understanding facial expressions, etc. So, it's a simulated hologram of, a job interviewer, some mock questions, get them comfortable so that when they go into the real interview, they do much more comfortably. Then an ability to cross the road using Azure Cognitive Services, where people are sort of struck with too many signals coming to them. There's sound, there is light, red, green, yellow, and they're not able to process. So this HoloLens program again helps them it's called Across, to cross the road. So similar stuff in the space of autism that we are doing. If you've followed the recent Ignite 2020, we introduced something called Microsoft Mesh. It was an opportunity to create a new mixed reality platform powered by Azure. People in different locations joined collaboratively, and they had a holographic experience on many kinds of devices. So, and then you must have also heard about Microsoft Viva, where we are putting together, it's called the Employee Experience like ERP, it's called the Employee Experience Portal, where we are bringing in different things like Viva Insights, talking about how you're collaborating with your teams or with customers. Viva Connections, which tells about how much are you taking breaks and what are you, and also Viva Learning and Insights, which talks about what are the key areas to go out for subject matter expertise or for things that you're looking out for, etc. So we are bringing together all of this in Viva. So these are some of the key things. I'm sure Viva will definitely find relevance in the healthcare space, just like how our AI and HoloLens found its place in the healthcare space.
So Danya, I'll ask one last question, which I found interesting, but because we have just about a minute left. So Sridevi has a question asking that, curious to know any practice you want to share to inspire the team for innovation.
To inspire?
To inspire any team for innovation. So how do we inspire team to do innovate, to go and innovate?
To innovate. Actually,
curiosity, basically. I guess that's...
No, a good question. Actually, she's asked a very good question. I get so pulled in with the rigmarole of the daily rut that I myself have not taken that time off to think along these lines. So she's got me thinking, frankly. But I feel, if you give the freedom and the space to encourage new ideas and to let them fail and then come back with the learnings, that will automatically encourage teams to innovate. You don't need to create a rocket science group, or obviously you can give positive reinforcements and you can give awards, and those things keep happening. But if you give them the space and you appreciate the fact that they are willing to take risks and make mistakes and learn from it, automatically I think the culture of innovation will inculcate intrinsically in the team. That's my point of view.
Absolutely. Dhanya, we are at the top of the hour. Thanks a lot. This was wonderful. I mean, I got a lot of points to. I can write my own book now. Thank you, Dhanya.
I was actually wondering 1 hour, what will I talk? And you made it so easy for me, Farooq and Rex and all of you by the engaged in the way and the ease with which you engage. So thank you for the opportunity, and I hope I've been able to bring something across to the rest of the CTS employees too, which will help them talk a little about Microsoft and about what they could do to do things differently.
Thank you, Dhanya. This was wonderful. This was really wonderful. Rex, I'll pass it on to you for the final words.
Thank you, Dhanya. It was a very nice talk, and we have covered a lot of aspects, right? From team management to innovation, to technology, right? So a big thank you from our side, Dhanya, for giving you valuable time in midst of the year-end works. I know it was very tough for us also. So Shalil, thank you for giving your valuable time and inputs always. And of course, Farooq, thank you. So you tried to pull my leg, but it didn't work out, I guess.
We'll set up another call for that, Dhanya, and we'll set up another call for that.
So big thank you, Farooq and Dhanya. Right? Thank you. Thank you, citizens and everyone. There's a lot of citizens who participated. So if you have any other questions, you can email us and we can pass it on to Dhanya.
Pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Have fun, guys. It's a short life. Have fun. Enjoy your jobs. Give it your best. And look forward to meeting you when I'm in Bombay next.
Sure,
yes.
Dhanya.
Yes.
Right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.